Hello, horrorphiles. You're listening to Dissecting Horror,
examining the anatomy of fear in film, television, and literature.
Doctor Who, Season 6, Episode 11, The God Complex. The Doctor, Amy, and Rory become trapped in a hotel of horrors, unable to escape and unable to find the TARDIS. The Doctor must save as many people as he can, taking many twists and seeing his own worst fear, according to the Internet Movie Database. The show's opening intro gave me a decent overview of what that universe is and its rules, but for those uninitiated like myself, TARDIS stands for Time and Relative Dimension in Space. It's that big blue British-looking phone booth / police public call box that is the fictional time machine and spacecraft hybrid in Doctor Who.
The God Complex gives us a very compelling classic horror setting, each subject finding themselves imprisoned in an 80s hotel full of personalized paranoias and fears, with no real inclination on how to check out with their life intact. The hotel itself is seemingly alive and preying, morphing and changing based on its victims and how ripe they are for its appetite. Likewise, the evil itself is shown to have many forms, not only the illusions used to terrorize and taunt those who face their doors, but in the monster itself, at the heart of the hotel. It goes even deeper to the source of its motivations, revealing even more of the face and intent on the darkness commanding it all.
The God Complex, airing on September 17th, 2011, stars Matt Smith as the Doctor, Arthur Darvill as Rory, and Karen Gillan as Amy. I had first seen Karen Gillan in Oculus, which came out 2 years later, a film I rather admire. But I didn't know she was Scottish, which says something about her excellent acting, I suppose. She has gone on to have quite the career with 77 acting credits thus far, from Jumanji to the Avengers franchises.
Fear itself is both at the core of horror and is a deeply embedded human response, even to the less fantastical but still formidable foes in everyday life. Having something that appears to cultivate fears, looking into its victim's subconscious and personal core feelings, is both invasive and terrifying. It challenges you to stay strong and face your fears, but at the same time lets you know that won't be enough, feeling even more daunting and maddening. There is an interesting correlation and discussion of fear and faith, and how to combat fear using that faith or belief in something, whether it's religion, principles, another person, or even in ourselves. It is our shield. That defense and strength then being contorted into a weakness can be shattering.
As a newbie, I feel I should refrain from asking a great many questions like, why is his name Doctor Who? Why is he routinely replaced with different actors? Or what's that gadget he keeps blaring, and so forth. My only prior exposure to Doctor Who was watching a marathon of old episodes from the 70s or 80s at my Aunt Jean's house when I was a kid. I remember a bunch of scenes with kind of R2-D2-like robots chasing and shooting lasers at our heroes. Have you watched any of the episodes from the 60s, 70s, or 80s?
I have not, and it's something I think I should probably try and see how it kind of connects with me. I've heard kind of mixed feelings. Obviously, total respect to the origins and what they created. I have heard, with some fans that feel like the newer series kind of connects and is maybe more relatable in some ways, but I don't know. I was looking into what were supposed to be some of the, more gothic or scary episodes. There were some from the original series that came up that did seem intriguing. But since you had dabbled in that one a little bit and not at all in the newer one, I decided to focus on the newer series. But I'd give it a try and see. I guess it depends kind of the subject matter, because one thing, I think it's partially just like the spirit of the Doctor and the tone and this fiercely imaginative and curious, and it's full of like a lot of heart and emotion, but ultimately like optimism and hope that's kind of just like exhilarating. So again, that's like who the Doctor is at its core, kind of. So I would assume that would be there from the beginning. But I think one of the things that initially got me to like get into it a little bit is because like each episode, like there are episodes that are like 3,000 years in the future in space. And then there are some with Vincent van Gogh. And then there's some that, you know, the Queen of England and even more modern day England. And each episode is kind of its own thing. So if you have like sort of one creature or monster or genre that's a little less, you know, up your alley, then the next one, you know, might very well be one that's, you know, very specific to you and speaks to you more. So I don't know, maybe that's the case with the original one, maybe it's not. But I guess I've been a little hesitant in if it will manage to engage me the same way, but there's no harm in trying, so might as well check it out.
This did have a distinctly low budget feel to it. The monster costumes bordered on comically bad, especially that gorilla at the very beginning, which was supposed to be terrifying. Yet there can be a definite charm and even delight to such imperfections. These often lend a certain character to a show or film. When you're on board with the story and characters, one can turn a blind eye or is just okay with such shortcomings. We can suspend our disbelief enough because we want to like it. It might even make us root for it more, like the down-and-out boxer or the undeserved misfortune of the penniless orphan. The reverse, however, incorporating expensive high production value while lacking good story and characters, will never garner that same endearing effect, a lesson Hollywood seems doomed to never learn. Maybe it's a British thing. Maybe they just have less resources in Britain because it's a BBC thing and they have to stretch their budgets. But it kind of added to it for me. It's like the old original Star Trek series are kind of campy and the sets were a bit cheesy, but everybody is deeply in love with all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, it's good to be taken into these worlds or adventures and have them seem real. But the main, I think, appeal is the Doctor and the different companions. Like, kind of, it's definitely a very character-rich show. So there's a certain spirit, I think, that really connects to a lot of people. Yeah, I think it's more about that kind of connection or enigma or fascination with the characters that they build.
Now, anyone who's ever met you, Kelsey, knows or learns very quickly that you are a Harry Potter fanatic. You're crazy for Quidditch, balmy for butterbeer. Likewise, is there something about the Britishness of Doctor Who that lends a greater appeal to you? If it were an American-based show, do you think you would still like it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I like British things and even just the London setting, but I don't think it being British is like why I like it. I think more than anything, it's the spirit. For one thing, to tie back into Harry Potter, it is the most Ravenclaw thing I think I've ever experienced in my life. It is just, which, you know, if you don't know I'm Ravenclaw, you probably don't know me in real life because I ooze it. But yeah, there was a lot. I think when I first wanted to watch the show, again, I was on the fence because specifically things that take place in space, I'm usually like never into, even if it's like a drama or, you know, whatever it might be, or just not as into it. There's always like a little bit of a detachment, I think, even in the language a lot of times for me. So I was a little on the fence for years if I would like this show. But there was like certain quotes that I would hear that would just like speak to like a part of my spirit where after a while I'm like, okay, I think there's something here that would really, you know, connect to me. Example of the Ravenclawness. There's one episode, this is during David Tennant's Doctor, where he says, "You want weapons? We're in a library. Books are the best weapons in the world." So, for example. And this is another one that I think speaks to like the overall spirit of it a lot. "I am and always will be the optimist, the hoper of far-flung hopes and the dreamer of improbable dreams." No, we talk a lot about a lot of like grim, entrapping things within the horror context on the show, but like at my core, I'm definitely this dreamer, optimist, believing spirit.
They have an alien in this episode, and I didn't notice any sort of translation device. He just spoke perfect English. Is there something that justifies that in the show?
Yeah, there are certain episodes where like a character will be like, oh, how, or even like French. There's one where that's sort of like a portal thing where the characters are there, but they're talking to someone who's in France and it automatically, is English. And they're like, how am I understanding them? And then another character says, oh, well, it's basically the doctor and his kind of tools will automatically, because he can understand like pretty much every language ever created in time and space.
Well, I wouldn't expect them to have to explain that every time they had an alien.
Yeah.
Star Trek has their universal translators, which apparently do that as well, but doesn't justify why their mouths are moving differently. But it's a conceit, and we go along with it as the audience because it just makes things a lot simpler to follow. Getting back to the Britishness of it, I even toyed with the idea of us performing this entire podcast with British accents.
Oh boy, that'd be a mess.
Probably best we didn't.
Yeah.
What I love about this show's premise is that it allows for almost anything to be possible. They can go anywhere in the universe to anytime they want to, with any mix of characters that will make for a fun story. It could be a blend of anything it wants to be, with notes of science fiction, comedy, adventure, horror, and fantasy. The variety this provides lends to endless possibilities while still managing its own voice. No surprise they haven't run out of ideas since the show's inception in 1963. In conclusion, I have to say I quite enjoyed this, Zukowski. The humor really clicked with me. It had layers of mystery, and I don't know if I would call it scares, but certainly dark content, while still being fun for the whole family. You may have just awoke a new fan of Doctor Who.
All right, did it. What did you think, like the overall like atmosphere and theme concept? Did that all kind of intrigue you, or how did that work for you?
Have you ever watched the Backrooms series on YouTube?
Mm-mm.
Well, it has to do with this. God, I don't know if I can explain it, but it's like a bunch of empty rooms in office spaces and so forth, which has this eerie quality to it. And there's a word for it I can't remember, but it's this feeling when an area, for example, has been abandoned. Like you go to an empty amusement park or something. There's some sensation that makes you feel creepy.
Yeah.
And this hotel captured that. It felt like there are signs that life has been there, and it's been there for a long time, but it's like a different dimension. There were clues that lots of species have been there. And I found that fascinating and creepy. Like I wanted to be in that space while also being combined with that classic haunted hotel vibe. Also,
one correction, I'm not that big of a fan of Quidditch.
Oh.
I'm not very sportsy, even in the magical world.
For me, it seems like a set piece that is just there to add like an exciting moment because the pacing required it. But I never really felt much for it either. I just still don't understand how the fuck you play it. But your point is well taken.
Yes. You'll find me in the restricted section of the library, not at the Quidditch pitch. If you enjoyed this deep cut, you'll love the podcast in full.
If you would like to join our Society of Grotesquerie and Loathing, subscribe now and give this podcast a like.
And be sure to comment your wretched thoughts below.
Keep our podcast suffering on by finding it in your cold, black withered hearts to support us on Patreon.
A link to our PayPal is also below for one-time donations of any amount.
It was nice knowing you.